Okay, so there are four main structures, and the first structure I'm going to talk about is called a portfolio. It can also be called an account or a fund. These terms, portfolio, account, and fund, are sometimes used interchangeably. So if you are familiar with the words account or fund, you can think of those instead of a portfolio. We will actually dive into the technical difference between what a fund and an account is in the next video. Okay, moving on. So what is a portfolio, or an account or a fund if you think in those terms? Well, think of a bank account holding cash. This would be similar to that, but it holds securities and cash. So I'm going to draw a circle here to represent the portfolio, which holds securities and cash. Instead of a circle, you could even think of it as an imaginary bucket or a box if you want. But essentially, it's like an electronic storage container. And this portfolio is going to hold a few securities. For example, this portfolio will hold 3 stocks: stock A, stock B, and stock C. And it will also hold some cash. Well, similar to a bank account, a portfolio usually belongs to a person, or it can even belong to multiple people, or even an institution, like a large corporation or a foundation or an endowment. Okay, so we are done with portfolio here. We're about to move on to the next one. The next type of structure is actually the securities that are inside the portfolio. So let's look at the securities from this portfolio as an example. Securities A, B, and C. And we will also look at cash. And appropriately, this type of performance is usually referred to as security level performance. So let's say we learned that the portfolio we discussed before earned 8% last year, and we want to see how the individual securities did. Well, some systems will enable you to run a security level performance report. For example, if we run that report here, we might see that security A earned 11%, security B earned 7%, and security C earned 5%, and cash earned a 0.1% return. Now, security level returns can become very complicated because there are many further calculations we can do. I won't cover these here because it takes a lot of time, and I actually have multiple videos dedicated to this topic. But I want to mention something called an attribution system, because you might hear about these systems. Attribution systems use security level returns to try to show whether the decisions to hold the securities were good or bad. For example, a portfolio manager may have decided to hold a lot of technology stocks, and the attribution system would show whether that was a good or bad decision based on how those stocks did. The next type of structure is called a benchmark. This can also be referred to as an index. An index is actually a type of benchmark, but is the most common type, so some people use the terms index and benchmark interchangeably. Okay, so what is a benchmark? Have you ever turned on the news and heard a reporter saying that the market is up or the market is down? Well, they are quoting how the market is doing based on benchmarks. For example, the FTSE 100 is up 5 points. The FTSE 100 is a benchmark representing the UK market. Or the Nikkei average is up 500 points. The Nikkei average is a benchmark representing Japan's market. Or the S&P 500 is up 50 points. The S&P 500 is a benchmark representing the US market. So if we compare a benchmark to the other structures we discussed, a benchmark is similar to a portfolio. So here I'll draw a circle again. And like a portfolio, a benchmark holds securities, but usually many more than a portfolio. You can see I put 3 securities in the portfolio and 9 securities in the benchmark, but that was just for simplicity. Portfolios and benchmarks usually hold much more, but I couldn't fit that into my drawing here. Also, just one more point I want to make before I dive deeper into benchmarks is to explain what I mean when I say securities. I spoke about security A, B, and C in the portfolio, and in security level performance. And now again, I am talking about securities and benchmarks, but I really haven't mentioned what a security is. So I'll veer off here for a second just to explain. These securities could be any type of investment, such as stocks. For example, you buy shares of Apple or Amazon. Bonds, such as treasury bonds or corporate bonds. Real estate, like homes or REITs, or really any type of investment. Okay, now back to benchmarks and comparing it to a portfolio. Remember, for a portfolio we said that a person or institution owns a portfolio, similar to how someone would own a bank account. Well, with benchmarks there is no owner. They are essentially make-believe portfolios created by third-party companies called benchmark vendors or providers to track how the market is doing.